43 dogs found homes that day. Every kennel was empty. Every kennel except one. An 84-pound German Shepherd had been sitting in that corner for 9 months. 4 adoption events, dozens of families, nobody stopped. Then a woman walked in carrying a 4-month-old baby, and what a hidden camera caught that same night at 3 a.m. changed everything. The adoption event had been running for 6 hours. 43 dogs had found homes that day. Every kennel in the building was empty now, except one. In the far corner of the room, a German Shepherd sat pressed against the wall, watching the last few families put on their coats and reach for their car keys. The shelter staff had already started folding the chairs. Then the door opened one more time. Her name was Hunter, 84 pounds, dark sable coat, and the kind of quiet, steady eyes that didn't ask for attention. They just watched, waited, measured. She had been at Cloverfield Animal Rescue for 9 months. She had been to 4 adoption events before this one. At each one, families had stopped, read her information card, and moved on. Not because she growled, not because she lunged, simply because she was too much of something most people had already decided they didn't have room for. At the first event, a retired couple said their yard was too small. At the second, a man connected with her for nearly 15 minutes, then shook his head and left without explanation. At the third, a woman crouched down and let Hunter sniff her hand, stood back up and said she needed to think about it. She never came back. At the fourth event, Hunter wasn't even rejected. She was simply invisible. People looked past her toward the smaller dogs, the louder ones, the ones that pressed themselves against the kennel door and begged to be chosen. Hunter never begged. She just watched. Sarah, the shelter coordinator who had been with Hunter from her first day, sat down on the floor beside her that evening. She had stopped pretending the afternoon was going to turn around. She was just keeping her company. That was when the door opened. Megan Calloway was 31 years old, a former middle school art teacher who had taken leave after her son was born. Noah was 4 months old, round-faced, wide-eyed, and currently awake in his car seat with the focused expression of a person who had opinions he wasn't yet old enough to share. Megan had heard about the event from a neighbor that morning. She hadn't planned to come. She had a 4-month-old. She hadn't slept more than 5 hours in a row since February. She was not, by any reasonable measure, in a position to also have a large German Shepherd. She drove over anyway. When she walked through the door and scanned the room, most of the stations were empty or being broken down. Her eyes moved to the far corner. 1 dog, a laminated sign she couldn't read from across the room. She walked over. Sarah stood up when she saw her coming, then stopped. She looked at the car seat. She looked at Hunter. She had learned to manage her expression at these events, but this particular combination required a brief moment of adjustment. Megan set Noah's car seat down on the floor a few feet from Hunter and crouched to read the sign. Hunter lifted her head. Then she did something she had not done at any of the 4 previous events. She stood up, took 3 careful steps forward, and lowered her head slowly until her nose was level with the edge of Noah's car seat. She didn't touch him, she didn't make a sound. She just stopped there, completely still, and breathed in slowly. Noah looked at Hunter with the calm, unhurried attention of a baby who doesn't yet know this is supposed to be a significant moment. Hunter's tail moved once, slowly, against the floor. Megan looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Megan. If you're still here and haven't subscribed yet, honestly, that stings a little. Hit subscribe. You're gonna want to see where this goes. The paperwork took 40 minutes. By the time Megan finished signing, the last folding chairs were stacked against the wall and the lights in the main hall had been switched off. She loaded Noah's car seat into the back of her SUV, and Sarah helped get Hunter settled for the drive. The whole ride home, Hunter didn't take her eyes off the car seat. The first night was not easy. Megan had not thought through the logistics of introducing an 84-pound dog to a house arranged entirely around the needs of an infant. Baby gates everywhere, a bassinet in the bedroom, soft objects at low heights on every surface. Hunter investigated all of it, methodically, room by room, nose to the ground. Then she walked to the corner of the bedroom closest to the bassinet and sat down. Megan moved her. Hunter came back. Megan moved her a second time. Hunter came back again. On the third attempt, Megan stood in the doorway, looked at Hunter looking back at her, and decided this was not a conversation she was going to win. By midnight, the house was quieter than it had been in months. Megan expected chaos. Instead, she got stillness. When Noah stirred at 2 a.m. for a feeding, Hunter lifted her head from the corner, tracked the sound, and put her head back down when Megan appeared. She didn't crowd the space. She didn't hover. She just stayed near. Megan sat in the feeding chair at 2:17 in the morning in a house she no longer recognized, in the best possible sense of that phrase. The days that followed built on each other quietly. Hunter learned which rooms Noah spent the most time in and positioned herself near the doorways without instruction. During the hours Noah was awake on the floor, Hunter would lie within a few feet of the playmat, not touching, not hovering, just present, with the calm certainty of a dog who had decided that being nearby was simply what she did now. There was one moment that made Megan laugh out loud 3 weeks in. She had put Noah down for a nap, walked to the kitchen to finally eat something while it was still warm, and found Hunter sitting directly in front of the refrigerator, staring at it with the kind of focused intensity she usually reserved for the front door. Nobody knows what she wanted. She never moved until Megan opened it, looked inside, and closed it again. Hunter seemed satisfied. She walked back to the bedroom. Some things don't need explaining. 3 weeks in, Megan installed a small camera in the bedroom corner to check whether the overnight heating was reaching Noah's sleeping area evenly. She reviewed the first night of footage on a Saturday morning while Noah napped. What she saw stopped her completely. Every night, at some point between 3 and 4 in the morning, Hunter stood up from her corner, walked to the bassinet, and stood beside it for approximately 90 seconds, not moving, not making a sound, just standing there, head slightly lowered, watching Noah breathe. Then she walked back to her corner and lay down. She had not been trained to do this. Nobody had asked her to. She had simply decided, on her own, within the first 24 hours of being in that house, this was part of what staying here meant. Megan watched the footage 3 times. Then she sat with her coffee going cold and didn't speak for a long time. She thought about the 4 families who'd walked past Hunter's kennel. She thought about what it means for a dog to decide, without instruction, without reward, that something in a new house is worth getting up for at 3 in the morning and standing beside in the dark. 9 months, 4 events, and this dog had spent every one of those days watching the door, waiting for someone she hadn't met yet. Every family that walked past that day had a reason. Too big, too much, too unpredictable for someone already managing everything alone. The family that was right for her walked in last. She was carrying the most, and she never hesitated once. Noah is 7 months old today. Hunter still takes her position in the bedroom corner before Megan turns off the light. She still stands beside the bassinet sometime between 3 and 4 every morning, 90 seconds, not a sound, then back to her corner. Nobody wanted her for 9 months. She spent every one of those days waiting anyway. If you're thinking about bringing a dog into your life, visit a shelter first, because sometimes the one who's been passed over the longest has been saving their whole heart for the right home. Would you have walked through that door with a 4-month-old and said yes, or would you have turned around? Tell me honestly in the comments.